sword is on top of a short sword and covered with a red cloth. It means a challenge. No one can turn down the challenge. You got to accept the challenge? You aren't, did you? Aren't you?
Hello, I'm Sabrina, aka Bria, aka the artist of the popular transgender-themed webcomic Life of Bria, and now, apparently that qualifies me to have a radio show. I couldn't think of a better way to spend a crazy, stormy Sunday afternoon like we're having here on the West Coast, and hopefully my listeners in Vancouver and the rest of the coast are somewhere warm and cozy, and, with working electricity and junk. This is episode number 4 of the show, and this week I have not one, but 2 guests. I have with me the creators of the trans-themed superhero comic, The Blue Valkyrie. Please welcome artist David John Mitchell and writer Emily Reisbeck. I totally didn't ask you how to properly pronounce your name, but I'm going to assume I got it right. Thanks, guys, for coming on the show, though.
Hi, thanks for having us. It is Reisbeck, but everybody gets that wrong.
Everyone gets my name wrong, so don't worry about it. Sorry I got that wrong, though. Awesome. Okay. So, this being the first time I've had 2 guests on at once, I'm extremely interested to know, what are both of your favorite respective dinosaurs and why?
I actually have a qualifying question for that. Are they feathered or not feathered?
We're talking about real science here. So, feathered on theropods, no evidence for feathers on non-theropods.
Velociraptor, feathered.
Interesting. Why is
I
that?
like to.
Sorry?
I go for Triceratops. Classic.
Yeah, that is solid. Both are solid answers. Why would you, though, say, Emily, why would you choose Velociraptor?
Well, actually, if it was unfeathered only, I would choose Triceratops as well. But feathered, I just think they're cute. They're like big chickens.
It took me a while to warm up to the feathers, for sure. I think a lot of people, they're very invested in their scary, scaly, like dragon dinosaurs. But feathers, honestly, I think of feathers more like fur, which means like Velociraptor, say, becomes almost like wolf-like. I think a scary bird coming at you would be pretty intimidating.
Yeah, we're talking like a 5-foot chicken here, so...
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a 5-foot chicken? I have not, so I would be terrified.
Yeah, seriously, anything that's 5 feet is kind of scary. Like, look at a big dog. I mean, I don't know. I can see, like, wanting scales. Like, I don't know. My favorite, of course, is Tyrannosaurus. I'm in the opposite camp of, say, Camp Triceratops. I talked about this with D-Fish last week. And I get a little invested in a non-feathered Tyrannosaurus. I think because a big part of it is it's that intimidation factor. And also, I mean, come on, large body animals, they're not going to have a lot of feather coverage. Look at elephants. They don't have much hair. But...
True.
That's true.
But, they've got a little bit of hair, so I wouldn't be surprised if a full-grown Tyrannosaurus got a little bit of, plumage going on, like a lion's mane or something. But I'm curious why actually both of you kind of chose Triceratops. What's the attraction for you there?
I think they're cute. That's my answer.
I mean, like, straight up, the movie Jurassic Park promised me that they would be docile and I could walk up to them and do the hug thing where you just lay on its belly and it breathes in and out,
People always have this idea that herbivores are friendly, but I think in modern times, like, in Canada, and I guess technically the US, the most dangerous animal is a moose, and worldwide the most dangerous animal is a hippo. So herbivores, they gotta fight, they're tough. I wouldn't trust a Triceratops.
I mean, realistically, yeah, Triceratops is like a bull mixed with a dragon, so...
Yeah.
A bull?
Like a bull,
Like in Spain. Matadors and all that.
Oh, God, I was thinking like something you put
like
cereal in.
Yeah, they're, I wouldn't trust near anything with horns, honestly. Even if it doesn't mean to hurt you, it probably could hurt you pretty easily. The thing does weigh a few tons. The one in Jurassic Park was pretty sick, so you're pretty safe going up to it.
That's also true of the T-Rex.
Yeah.
I guess, though, you know what you're getting into with the T-Rex, so...
How likely is it a big carnivore is actually going to even want to eat you? Like, you're nothing to it. Do you go up and like kill every little bug you see? Like,
Some people do. I mean, I don't personally, but I've met people who are like, but I don't like that personally. It's not my style.
yeah, right. Well, I guess a Tyrannosaur maybe is a little different than you and I. But if you're hungry, if you like living in the wild, maybe you would go for every little mouse you saw.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe, I don't know.
Hey, like my body size is remarkably similar to a mouse versus a cat. So
Yeah. I mean, shit, I'm not going to go around a Tyrannosaurus, that's for sure, or anything else. I wouldn't want to go around a 5-foot chicken. Like, big stuff's scary. I don't mean
chickens are kind of scary already.
Yeah, you know what?
They're not friendly animals.
I grew up around chickens. I was in the country. Like, if you make crowing sounds around a rooster, there's a very good chance that rooster will attack you. And it hurts.
Like crying sounds?
Like crowing, like pretend like you're another rooster. They're not okay with there being other roosters around challenging them. It's actually very interesting also going to places where there are multiple roosters because they figured out a pecking order. There's a hierarchy of roosters, and there's top rooster, and he will not tolerate any
I have
challenging
to think
roosters.
that's why it's called a pecking order.
Exactly. They will enforce it with pecks. So I don't mean to get too sidetracked from what we're actually here to talk about, but I always ask my guests what their favorite dinosaur is because I think you can actually tell quite a bit about a person by that, just like who they are and what they value in life, and also who it is they wish they could be, you know, like these qualities. And of course, that kind of brings me to your series, The Blue Valkyrie, which is about a superheroine who happens to be transgender. And the more I read of it, the more I realized that transness and superheroes really go hand in hand. All these ideas of dualities and identity and secrets, and people treating you like you're not human. It's actually kind of amazing there aren't more trans superheroes. Is that sort of what led you guys to come up with this story?
Well, when I first started writing the story, it was a very generic sort of motivation. You always hear like I didn't see anyone that was like me in this sort of medium, so I made my own thing, which was kind of how it started. But as I started writing more and getting more involved in the story, I did notice these parallels, and that did strike odd to me because it does seem to me that the between superheroes and transness has a lot of parallels. A lot of people have picked up on the whole dichotomy with like a secret identity and passing,
Oh yeah.
And I thought that was pretty interesting. And I was wondering why more comics didn't delve into this sort of theme.
Well, honestly, I think most people just are uncomfortable, which is like kind of what I think makes it great. It's an uncomfortable subject, and we should be challenging ourselves. It's
I definitely agree with that. I think that what I'm really interested in doing with the comic moving forward is to relate it to the X-Men. I love the X-Men.
Oh, yeah.
I actually, when I was a kid, I loved the show X-Men Evolution. Well, I was like a teenager, but beside the point. I loved it. I thought it was great. I love the X-Men. I think they're awesome. But there's always been this problem with the X-Men where the way they're set up is supposed to be like mirroring civil rights movement or then later on the gay rights movement. Except that the problem with the X-Men is that these characters do have superpowers and they can, straight up, they could annihilate humanity if they wanted to with a thought or with a wave of a finger. So in my opinion, I feel that in the world of the X-Men, where these people have these outrageous powers, it is sort of almost justified to be afraid of that, especially when one of them is this guy who can control metal who just says kill all humans all day. That's all he does. But
unlike gay people and trans people in real life, they actually could be a legitimate threat.
Right, which is why I was interested in sort of exploring those themes within that, lens of queerness and transness, because there is that dichotomy with Chloe where the way she's treated as a superhero does mirror the way she's treated as a transgender person, as a queer person, but at the same time, I do think there is some validity to the sort of the way that people treat her and they treat Isabella later on because of their powers, and because I think there is a certain justification to being afraid of that kind of strength.
I do think there is, I don't know if I'd call it a justification, but there is a reason why people are afraid of us. And it's because, going back to that idea of we challenge them, we make them uncomfortable. They don't like it that a person could be different in the way we appear to be different. And one thing I kind of learned early on in my transition is, in many cases, we're the ones who have the power. Those other people are uncomfortable by us. We don't have to be uncomfortable because of them. I mean, it changes when we get into violence, say, but most people are cowards and they're not going to do anything violent, and or maybe they're civilized and they're not going to do anything violent even if they're uncomfortable. But we shouldn't feel like we're less than anything because they're the ones who are uncomfortable. And I think Chloe
that's sort of
pardon, you go on. This is your
I apologize.
No.
Well, I was just going to say that sort of ties into one thing that I really like to do with the comic, and I haven't had a great opportunity to do this yet since we're still so early on in the story, but I like showing Chloe specifically having fun and enjoying her time as a superhero and sort of embracing that part of herself. For that very reason, I think that I guess in a lot of ways Chloe is really based on my life a lot, and she takes a lot of her personality comes from my personality. So I mean, if I was a superhero, your bottom dollar, I would have a blast doing that.
This that totally resonated with me because I was very, very strong in my old life, and there was a tension after I transitioned between my female identity and this perceived masculinity involved in, like, you know, martial arts and weightlifting and all these other activities I enjoyed. And it just really made me relate to Chloe's struggle in the book with reconciling her new super powerful identity with her trans identity as a woman. Is this something you went through also, Emily?
Actually, no. I was always kind of a wimp, and I guess I still am, although I have certainly cultivated a certain air of strength and coolness with the people I know now. But the reality is I'm a big, soft, squishy dweeb, and I couldn't harm a fly.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that, though, right? I mean, we're just trying to survive.
I like myself, so.
That's the thing, though. There's, like, this value within society of, like, being, say, masculine or strong, whatever that is, that's valued. And then not being that, like, that's somehow, like, frivolous, you know? Like, the things that women are supposed to like are seen as extra on top of life, whereas the things that men are supposed to like are seen as, like, basic and essential.
Oh, yeah, sure, absolutely. I also think there is a sort of, I hate to say it's not exactly a flip side, but there's also this tension when it comes to trans women, where trans women are made to feel uncomfortable for asserting any sort of traits that are seen as masculine coded. So, you know, stuff like trans women working out and, like, you know, getting buff or what have you, or things like that, or being assertive in a sense is used to sort of discredit their identities when it doesn't, you know, not necessarily ought to. And that's another reason why I kind of wrote Chloe the way that I did. She isn't, I wouldn't say she's masculine or even butch, but, like, you know, she likes being strong. And as someone who, you know, has always had a fondness for strong characters, and when I say strong characters, I mean, like, literal physical strength, you know, like Superman, Wonder Woman, Hawkgirl, what have you. Hawkgirl's my favorite. But as someone who's always had an affinity for those kind of characters, you know, when I took to writing Chloe and when I took to writing, you know, my own character, that's definitely where I went for inspiration.
I think that's what's so great about Chloe as a character. She's, like, seems like a real person. She's not just one thing. She's not just, say, masculine or just trans, which is something that she's, at the very beginning, she's talking about how she's really sick of everybody focusing on that one aspect of who she is. And that's the problem that so many stories about trans people, usually written by cis people, often have. Is that something you really specifically tried to avoid in your story?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially early on, and admittedly, I feel that the beginning of the story is a little bit ham-fisted. But and if I could go back, I would. But
we all feel that way with everything we do.
Yeah, that's every single writer ever under the sun.
You can't go back and George Lucas.
I definitely wanted to start out, like, straight off the gate, subverting that sort of, like, narrative. And I'm not saying that there hasn't ever ever a narrative written by a cis person about trans women. But like you think of like the classic like, hi, my name is John, but oh wait, no, my name is Jennifer.
Yeah.
And then the section in my name. And I just wanted to subvert that early on and just let people know the kind of story that they're going to get. And I felt that was a pretty okay job of doing that.
I thought it started out very strong in the sense that, like, she's already well into her transition, and it's like, at the very beginning, you're not 100% clear, like, oh, she's trans. You kind of, like, figured out partway, like, early on, but, like, it's not, like, again, not too ham-fisted.
It's not like a twist or something.
Yeah.
It's not meant to be like a narrative beat, like it's an established component of the world.
Mm-hmm. I'm a little curious. Have you read that new comic that's trans superhero alters? I haven't read it, but I heard like mixed things about it, and I think that's written by a cis person, as far as I know.
I have not read it. I don't have unfortunately don't have the money to buy it. I was interested in it when I saw it was coming out. I don't really have any opinions on it because, like I said, I haven't read it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, when you're an artist, you don't often have time to buy, or you don't have the time to read things, you don't have the money to buy things either. You're so focused on your own deal. It's a very involved process, as you both know, I'm sure.
It can definitely be. I have more comics, but I have a huge backlog of like friends' webcomics as well that I've been getting through, and that's taking up a lot of my time.
Not a bad way to go, because I mean, it's important to support people you know. It's a free way to support them. Just spreading it around, getting those views on their site, it's helpful. Just a PSA to everyone out there: if you know someone who makes art online, read it, look at it, share it, like it. It helps. It makes them feel good about themselves.
Share it, I would say. I would put an emphasis on share it,
yes,
please.
That button's the most important button beyond anything else. Commenting too even helps. Engage with people. We want activity on our pages. Also, everyone who's a fan of my page, by the way, I kind of expect that you're going to go, if you're listening to this, go and like their page. It's a great comic. I highly recommend reading it. The link's going to be posted in the description of this.
And vice versa, all 50 of you.
I'm sure you guys, once the word gets out more about this book, it's really going to pick up, because honestly, it's a very well-rounded story, and I really am excited to read the rest of it. I'm kind of curious, Emily, you started out in journalism. How did you get into writing comics? Because you seem very good at it.
Well, I actually do not have a lot of experience writing comics or even writing scripts before I wrote the Blue Valkyrie. It was the first comic I ever wrote. I keep forgetting this. That's not true. When I was 10, I had my own comics publishing company at school. It was called Fly Comics, and my logo was a house with wings, and I published a comic book that was published is a strong word. I printed it on paper and drew it.
That's awesome.
I wrote a comic called Aqua Guy. He was a ripoff of Aquaman, and he didn't have many superpowers, but he was a very good swimmer.
That's adorable. I love reading kids' comics. My mom saved all of my old comics I did as a kid. I've got them. I'm actually also curious, David.
Adorable. I don't have any of them.
Aw, well, they're in your heart.
That's right. Oh God, I'm just like, I can remember like specific panels, and they're so like silly. That was a kid. What am I gonna
Come
do?
on, kids can get away with whatever. David, were you always into illustrating comics? Do you work in any other mediums?
Yeah, I mean, I was always into comics, definitely. I mean, from a very young age, I was definitely involved in art. I did go to art school, and I sort of thing. But then when I went to art school, I sort of there was always this push and pull back and forth between sort of commercial arts, so to speak, illustration and comics, and then sort of opposite that, fine art as well. Sort of looking at abstract painting, looking at contemporary art as a world, and having a little bit of both throughout college was always interesting to me. And then after finishing school, I ended up getting a job for a contemporary art gallery, so I had that sort of part of my life which was being scratched. So being able to pursue working in comics outside of that was still important to me, because that's another aspect of myself.
Yes, I know the struggle. I also went to art school, and they were not such big fans of comics there.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely I think that there's definitely still a lot of institutional hangups about not just comics, but again, sort of like commercial arts, so to speak, like whether or not a place in art history. But yeah, I've always appreciated both. So I forced it with against great resistance.
And I'm curious, how did you two initially connect and begin your collaboration?
We met online. I think it was on Reddit, actually. I was just talking about a comic idea I had, and then David was like, "Hey, I'm an artist. Let's do it." And that was it. It was just dumb luck, really.
That's the common thing these days. Most people meet online. David, going back to you, the costume design in Blue Valkyrie, especially her mask, is really unique. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. Was there any particular process or inspiration that led to that?
I mean, the design for Chloe's costume specifically was actually borrowed from a drawing that Emily gave me that had been given to her by a friend of hers. So a lot of the costumes, overall beats were sort of drawn from that, actually. And then sort of as we started working through the design, some of my own interests or influences started filtering in. I think openness of the mask is looking more at like a wrestling history rather than just straight superhero history, which is kind of funny because so much of costume origins going back 70 years ago were looking at wrestlers, strongmen, circus types. So bringing some of that in, you know, the sort of utility of having boots and actual gloves rather than some sort of stylized extension of the costume was also something that really interested me and Emily connected with as well. The offset cape off the shoulder. I mean, all of the different elements sort of came together and was also sort of inspired by Emily and I wanting to have a, for Chloe, that was moderately possible for her to actually create. Because, I mean, she's basically wearing a one-armed body sock with boots and a cape. She has this sort of neck component is a ribbed material, and then so it's not this outrageously elaborate design thing. It's composed of found objects in a way.
I thought it was so cute that her partner designed it for her. That was really sweet.
I like that too. I want to point out really quick that the person who did the original drawing, his name is Lucas Goins. He's a very good friend of mine, and he's wonderful. And if you need art, you can also hire him.
Awesome. We can put, if you like, we can put a link to his art stuff in this thing.
I could definitely try and I'd have to get a link from him, but yeah, absolutely.
Sure, whatever you want, we'll throw that in the description.
Awesome.
I've noticed that gentrification seems to become, like, it's, you know, obviously the story's just starting out, but already this issue of development encroaching on normal folks. It's a pretty important premise of Blue Valkyrie. This is a topic that's hugely important in Vancouver here. I was just talking with our mutual friend PJ Patton a couple weeks ago on the show about it. What led you to create a story involving that?
Well, I lived in Milwaukee and Chicago. Those are the two places I've spent most of my time as far as cities go. Milwaukee is one of the most segregated cities in the United States. Chicago obviously has a lot of history of gentrification itself. I want to point out that gentrification is something that usually happens to communities of color, and I am not a person of color, and I'm not going to try to sit out here and say that I'm like some expert on it or that I have any right to speak on it. Everything I know about it has been through learning from people and reading and researching. So that being said, kind of my inspiration for it actually was that when I started writing the comic, I was actually working for a publication. I was reporting on development. And I was reporting on in development. And so, you know, for whichever, you know, for better or for worse, I would end up seeing a lot of stuff about gentrification and about like community opposition to different developments. And just the virtue of working in that environment, even though, just the virtue of working in that environment and, you know, reporting on that, I did kind of develop an interest in it, in construction and in development and in real estate. So I guess I was writing what I was doing at the time in a way. But obviously that sort of evolved from there. I just felt like it was a little more of like a modern conflict. You see, you know, and I love Batman, I love Superman, I love Wonder Woman, I love all this stuff, but I see like specifically like, I'll see Batman stories where what he does is he goes up and beats up, you know, criminals or what have you, usually like drug dealers or whatnot, and I didn't feel that really resonated with me as like a very modern idea. It seems almost a little puritanical in a way to me. So I wanted to do something that, I hate to use the word realistic because it's a story about jumping into burning buildings and punching through walls and plant people and, you know, other things that I can't spoil. But so I hate to say the word realistic, but it seemed a more genuine sort of conflict to have, and it seems the kind of conflict that I could definitely, you know, build a long running story on.
It's certainly very timely. It's also a problem that people don't want to talk about. It's a dirty secret that a lot of cities want to sweep under the rug and like just forget about the people who are being displaced. And they'll say, "Oh, look, we cleaned up this area. It's so much better than it was because we got rid of all those damn native people." Or you're like, "There's all these undesirables we've shoved away, and look at how clean
I also
it is
think
now."
it's besides the fact that it's getting swept under the rug, I think a lot of people don't realize how expansive it has a capacity to be. I mean, discrimination laws applying to housing have really, really limited boundaries. Like, really hard to prove that discrimination has happened at all.
Oh yeah.
And for many minorities aren't technically protected classes by how housing discrimination lawsuits would define them. So in the case of married person or any number of minorities getting evicted from their housing, and you know, there's not much that can be done about it. It's this unfortunate thing that doesn't really thought about, but it's really, really hard to prove that something illegal has happened during an eviction.
They can always just say it was for some other reason, you know? They could just say it was because of a conflict, or they found a better tenant if you're applying for housing or whatever. Really, it's because they don't like you because of who you are, but they don't have to say that, and you can't prove that's what it is. I know down here, the downtown east side of Vancouver, it's the neighborhood where basically Canada shoves everyone it doesn't want, and overwhelmingly it's Native people, First Nations we call them here, disabled people, senior citizens, and transgender people. These very vulnerable groups, and they're all shoved into this basically a ghetto that's becoming smaller all the time because businesses move in and they buy up, you know, the cheap property and then renovate it and make a nice new business for rich people to come in, and they're able to slowly push everyone out. And from the city's point of view, it's great, but they're not helping the people that actually need to be helped. You know, it's nobody's even trying to solve this problem because as far as they're concerned, they are solving the problem because they're making money.
Yeah, that view definitely influenced how I ended up writing Price as a character, because like and whether, you know, I guess I personally see that, I personally agree with you. I definitely think that that's an absolutely important view to have, but that was my approach to writing him as a character who doesn't necessarily see himself as a villain.
Yeah.
And I do really like, I say this a lot, I absolutely love, like, my favorite character to write. I don't know why I find him so enjoyable. able to write. Maybe because he's kind of a jerk, and he really is kind of a jerk.
I
But
hated him right.
I feel that what's compelling about him to me is that he's somebody who doesn't really see himself as a villain at all, and I do feel that there are many people who would look at him. Everyone who reads my comic says, "Oh, that guy's a villain." You know, of course he's a villain. Yeah, and that's true. But I do think there are people out there that if they read my comic, they would not really recognize that and a compelling character, in my opinion.
Yeah. Especially railing against some of those like cliches of superhero villain writing, like you were saying before, like who Batman is punching or someone. You know, there's this old trope of showing that they're villains, and whether they're calling themselves like the Brotherhood of Evil, or you know, Mr. Sinister, or
Dr. Doom.
These sort of silly cliches about villains sort of reveling in their own villainy, and I think the fact that Price, you know, it's a more complex view of the world, as opposed to like even when Batman's fighting against the mafia is presented as this like very villainous cliche of everyone's wearing black pinstripe suits or something as a symbol of dark costumes, dark characters, and you know that's not Price. He's an actual functioning human being who exists in a society.
That being said, I'm totally for a villain who just loves being evil and loves, like, I don't know, loves being evil. I'm for that. It's just not what I want to do with this comic. But if you want just a guy who loves killing, I'm totally okay with that.
No, totally.
Those guys
like, once in a while, it is an excellent, like, just enjoyable thing.
I think they're best saved for either the main villain's second in command or the main villain's like master, you know? Like
yeah, that's a good idea.
Like they can't really be the main focus because they're kind of silly, but they need to be a threat. They can be the henchman.
Well, sure.
He sets out, Price has some guy that he sends out who's a goon, or Price serves some master who's the aspect of evil, and maybe Price thinks he can use him, or he doesn't realize it, or what have you, an Emperor Palpatine thing. These are dynamics that we have to do, but when your main guy is just a cartoon, it doesn't work so well, and I really like Price as a character because of that.
He's my little angry boy.
Of course, I could tell right away he was a villain because he's got that douchebag beard, but that kind of like really, like that lends itself to him.
He's got a goatee, yeah.
Oh yeah, his little soul patch. It's like my favorite.
Oh god.
It's
I know. I feel it's so satisfying just to hatch that little soul patch in. He's got like matching like in sync earrings, like not literally in sync, but that kind of like guy.
He
like,
thinks he's so
matching
cool.
Earrings.
And everyone else just thinks he's such an asshole.
I think that at one point he definitely did like dye. He like bleached his hair blonde, absolutely. But like the tips were still there because it wasn't like all good. So like definitely the tips were still there.
Yeah. Also, definitely the guy who at some point in his life had like sideburns that went all the way down.
Oh yes.
Like, oh dear.
He was into that.
And he's also probably surprisingly good at surfing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I bet he's had lessons. Like he pays for surfing lessons.
Oh yeah, and if you see him surf, you gotta admit you're kind of impressed.
He's kind of like what, like Lex Luthor's a bit like that. Like he's, you know, he thinks he's great and he's trying to fight for what he believes in, and he's actually quite good at a lot of things. He's a very competent man. He's just also an asshole, you know.
It's funny because a lot of people bring that up, but Lex Luthor was actually not like the inspiration that I was sort of going for when I made the character. It was actually I was a little more looking at like Tony Stark and Batman,
sure,
Bruce Wayne and that kind of thing.
No, I get the sense that Price is he's quite a different league, like as you say. He's I liked him right from the beginning. Well, like I hated him right from the beginning, and that's why I liked him right from the beginning, you know, like he's a very solid villain. I'm very excited to see where you take him.
He's going places.
Yeah, I mean the whole thing is going places. It's just getting started. You've done what, 3 issues so far? Number 4. How many pages are into number 4?
We're just over halfway through. I think we're doing page Is it 16?
Yeah.
Yeah, 16.
16 just got
16?
finished. I'm penciling page 17 as this very conversation is happening.
Oh, that's the way to do it. You do your media while you draw. That's what I do. So actually, there's a new page coming out tonight, by
Yeah.
the way, everybody. After this is done with, there's going to be, is that 16 that comes out tonight? Or is it 17 that's going to come out?
It's 15. 15 comes out tonight for everybody. 16 goes out for our Patreons on Patreon, who get the next comic a week early. So yeah, if you gotta know, there's a way.
That link's already going to be in the description. I already know it's going to be there, so you should subscribe if you got some cash for comics. It's not a bad way to spend your entertainment budget, I gotta say.
Absolutely.
Sorry, go ahead. It's more about you talking than me.
Oh, that was it. I just said absolutely.
I was going to ask about the art. It started in color for the first few pages and switched to black and white for the rest of the series. And I'm actually a huge fan of black and white comics. I kind of prefer them, but I work in color these days because I realize it's got an appeal for a lot of people. But I'm curious for David, actually, yes, you too, Emily, do you prefer black and white, or is the switch purely for practical reasons, like so many indie comics have, like paying for print and such? Whichever one wants to start with that.
David, you want to field this one?
Yeah. So I mean, we started with the idea of wanting to put the comic in color. We worked with the colorist for a little bit. I did a little bit of coloring as well. The amount of time it takes, the amount of adjustment it takes, like color tracking across scenes or something becomes a layer of challenge. It seems sensible to us to make the switch to black and white, and also for the sake of prints, as you said, we have it as a webcomic, but we're also selling individual issues, and the cost of is so much lower in color.
Yes.
It works, and I'm happy to. I think I'm happy to be doing black and white because mainstream tradition of the full color comics, of course. I also love black and white comics, and a lot of my biggest influences worked primarily in black and white or worked frequently in black and white. So.
Who would those influences be? I'm curious.
Yeah, it was mostly just a cost-saving measure in a lot of ways. We just didn't have the money, sadly, to pay for it to be in color. But that said, I do actually think that it ended up being a very good thing. It really shows off David's line work, which I think is great, and I love his use of like shadows and in a lot of scenes. So all's well that ends well in that sense.
Either one can make you a better artist. If you're used to working black and white, it can be good to do some color for a while. It'll probably make your black and white stronger, and vice versa. So,
yeah,
win-win.
I do want to point out the irony that we have a color in our name, and yet our comic is black and white.
Well, you know what? I don't know. I kind of like that about it. And also, as you go on, like, it starts out pure black and white, and it gets into the gray tones now, and you can kind of start using the gray tone to hint at certain colors. You can get away with tons with black and white. A lot of people underestimate it.
Yeah, maybe we'll add one color per issue until we got the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the thing that, like, Akira did that.
Let's build it up. Let's, one by one.
It's very common for black and white comics to have a few color pages at the beginning, and then it goes into black and white. Like, I know for a fact Akira did that every volume. A lot of manga, especially, because they're typically in black and white. Mm-hmm. It can kind of draw you in. It also like sets the stage. It's like, oh, okay, this is what everything looks like with color, and now keep that in your mind because we're going to black and white mode now. I kind of want to bring that back.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a fan of that.
And obviously the covers are mostly color except for issue 2s. And the covers were all done by David as well. The issue 3 cover is actually colored pencil, wow. And then I believe issue 4 was I can't remember what kind of paint did you use, David, for that one.
It's weird stuff. I have this I have an awful indecisive play back and forth between digital and traditional. So yeah, issue 3 I inked traditionally, scanned, digitally colored the flats, printed it out, and then added the shading with colored pencil.
Wow.
And then issue 4 is actually just ink wash. It's they're just like acrylic inks. kind of nice painterly looseness.
And what do you
Oh, and
normally
then I also add fill to that afterwards, of course, naturally.
What do you normally use to ink the comics? Do you do that with real ink, or do you digitally do it, or?
All traditional, yeah. I do
Awesome.
in non-photo blue, and I work on Bristol. And then, yeah, inking, I use Black India ink. I use both brush and pen.
Which do you prefer? Do you use primarily a brush and then go over with a pen, or do you prefer pen more and only use brush for certain things?
It sort of depends on what the application is. I primarily move between 3 different tools. I'll use a multi-liner for the finest lines. For sort of the medium lines, I'll be using a Nico G nib dipped into ink.
Love the
and then anything that gets heavier, I'll do like a brush, and even at a heavier line, I'm still using like a size 1 brush, pocket brush or something.
Yeah.
So those 3 tools will sort of mark the 3 line weights that will.
I'm always interested to learn artists, especially inking. I think inking's my true passion in comic art, and everybody's got their own system, and it's so cool to see people's methods, especially since the art in Blue Valkyrie is really crisp and clean. It's really great. I guess getting back to the writing side of things, one thing that really stood out to me when Chloe first goes into the fire, or her first like thing she does as a superhero, when she's like, all of it, the hate, the love, the pain, it all makes me who I am today. I really like who I am. This is the primary lesson that I think not just trans people, but ultimately everybody needs to learn. And I'm curious how central of idea for you is that for the comic? Because for me, that was like the moment.
Yeah, I would say very, very central in a sense. Obviously, the comic is moving a little more into the plot direction as opposed to the message direction. You know, and I think that's just a side effect of how I want the plot to go forward.
Yeah.
The themes have changed a lot for me since I started writing to now. And I feel like I'm starting to tackle more like bigger themes and questions that are a little more I don't know what word I'm trying to think of here. I apologize. I'm just going to move on. But for me as a person, I feel that kind of like thinking has helped me in the past. You know, because I think there was this idea that I come across once in a while, and it's not terribly often, and I don't mean to say that like all or even a lot of trans people do this, but there's this idea that that who you are now is different than who you were pre-transition. And personally, and again, this is just my own personal experience. Personally, I never felt that was very that sort of, you know, made sense to me, or that sort of made sense to who I was. So for me, like, it was important to sort of reconcile everything in my life has made me who I am today. You know, I can't, no matter whether or not I have like regrets or whatnot, the fact of the matter is that because my life happened a certain way, because certain things happened in my life, that has influenced me and that has made me who I am. And I think part of loving myself and part of learning to love myself was reconciling this and understanding that this was all part of the whole Emily package, you know, the good and the bad. And I think that's something that shows up a lot in the Blue Valkyrie, and it's going to continue to show up in my work. This idea that like you can't necessarily escape your past, but then again, that might be okay. Yeah.
I think it's a central thing that especially trans people are forced to confront, basically. And yeah, I'm torn on it too, because obviously all these things make you who you are and they teach you lessons. But sometimes it doesn't mean we have to be happy about them either. It's a weird dynamic I have with it. Perhaps I haven't fully learned the lesson. It's hard for me to feel good about the past, but at the same time appreciate what it's given to me. It's
exactly, and that can be an incredible struggle, and I definitely struggle with that myself.
I think everyone does.
I feel like writing that particular scene was me sort of working through my own feelings about that.
Oh, it was very powerful. I really appreciated it.
Well, thank you. I do my best.
I think it really leads into this question I try to ask everybody, I don't always get a chance to, is what would you most like to see change in the way trans people are represented in the media? Because that's a good starting point, that question. But is there more?
I just want to see trans stories written by trans people. And moreover, I just want to see more stories written by trans people. I think that, like, even just beyond the social aspect of trans people deserve to have a voice and yada yada yada, I think that we have a very interesting perspective, and there we're not a monolithic community. We come in all shapes and sizes, and everybody's got a different experience. And I just think that, like, if you're gonna have, there's the old saying of we need diverse books, we need diverse stories. I definitely agree with that, and I think that the people who are asking for diverse stories are also asking for diverse creators, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think you're going to have better stories because you're going to have more of a pool of experience to draw from, and you're just going to get better stuff. That's a phone ringing. I apologize.
That's all right. There's nothing short of unplugging the phone we can do to stop it, which is a little extreme. Is there anything else, I guess, for David, in terms of what you would like to see change in, I don't know, comics, art? What's your perspective on the media as it is today?
I mean, in terms of desire for change, I think that, just, I think diversification as a notion across all kinds of different strata. I would love to see diversification within the visuals. I would love to see diversification within the kinds of stories being told, the genres, the subject matters, the perspectives, who's telling the stories. I feel like, there's things that haven't been touched on. So many stories left untold that the media really could, and just for so long, comics were kind of stuck in superhero mode by consequence of all kinds of things in the history of the medium. Basically, that started changing with the underground comic scene, with the alternative comic scene, and it's continuing to change. But I feel like we're really only just seeing a fraction of the potential within the medium, and that will change as more people start making work.
Absolutely. I actually have to say, I don't generally like superhero comics, which is why I was so impressed that this one grabbed me so well, because it does bring something new to the table. It's a new experience, a new perspective. And imagine if we got more like that going on. Who knows where, even not just that genre, but all of comics, all of media could go. There's so many stories that can be told that just haven't been.
Oh, absolutely. I think that would be a phenomenal thing. And obviously, part of that is people, feeling like they can just get out there and create. However, I do want to point out that obviously there's the idea that if you want to make something, just make it. And obviously that's what I did in a sense, and that's what I hope to continue to do. But not everybody has that ability. It's just it's sort of infeasible to say just do it. If you want to see yourself in media, you got to be the one to make it, because people, oftentimes people of color, trans and queer people, disabled people, and what have you, they don't get the opportunities in the first place to tell their own stories.
If you work all day long, how are you going to make some art? Like if you have to work 12 hours a day on minimum wage, how is it even going to happen?
Exactly.
Making art? Or just, again,
Absolutely.
you don't have access to the materials, a computer, if you're disabled, if it's hard for you to hold a pencil or something for whatever reason, like, how are you supposed to represent yourself?
Yeah, so there's definitely the ideal of just make it, and in a lot of ways that's very motivating to me, but in a lot of ways it's also very disheartening to me as somebody who tends to, sometimes not be so good at making things.
It's a struggle. That actually brings me to something I wanted to ask you is, are you working on anything else right now? Like, do you have other projects going?
Oh, like, Why, yes, I am. Actually, I'm working on a short comic right now with Nellie Carlson. She is the artist and author of a comic called Beyond the Ordinary, which is a wonderful, wonderful comic. If you like fantasy and you like especially like low fantasy settings, I would really recommend it. We're making a comic. It's going to be about werewolves, and it's going to be very, very cute.
Aw.
And I'm very excited for that. I'm also working on a video game, actually.
Really?
Which, yes, it's going to be called Kin. I'm working with a wonderful team of people. Probably most well known would be, or most well known for your readers would probably be Zoe Maxine. She is the author and creator of The Queen Candidate, the webcomic, which is also a wonderful webcomic. And if you really like aliens and you like weird alien designs and you like bugs, you should totally give that a read. And if you don't like bugs, don't let that turn you off because they're very cute.
I'm very interested now. I hadn't read that one, to be honest. You'll have to link me to it.
I will.
Do you get to work on much else these days, David?
I try to when I can. Yeah, besides trying to do Blue Valkyrie, I also provide illustrations to a that's being published online, Sidelings by DM Elms.
Who was that? I didn't catch the name.
Oh yeah, I can get you a link. And
Sidelings is the name.
Sidelings?
Yeah. And then providing illustrations for that, and I'm also trying to work on this and that for either little comic anthologies or zines as very loose, formative things start happening on that front. But yeah, it's hard to wrangle a little bit.
Yes. And
Yeah, I keep sending chain link fences his way, and that takes the whole week.
oh my god, intricate line work. Without giving too much away, what can we expect for the future of Blue Valkyrie then?
Oh
Any
well,
snippets you can give?
you're gonna get to see the most handsome person in the world soon, so I'm very excited about that. Yeah. You met him already. You met him at early issue 4, so you know him, the most handsome person in the world. But he's coming back. He's definitely coming back, and I'm very, very excited because he's so handsome.
Yeah, this very page I'm working on, I'm drawing his beautiful face in the forest. It's great.
Wow.
Yeah. Besides that, more superhero stuff for sure. I promise that there will eventually be some superhero stuff in this comic. And I don't know, more crying and more hugging. Yeah, that sounds about right.
That's a nice juxtaposition. You got the hard at the soft, action and love.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing of really
romance and punching.
Well, just even like feelings and punching. Like Chloe as a character, she, she's got a soft side obviously, but she also beats the crap out of people. I honestly like male characters. I'd say that's a thing that more stories need. The male character who doesn't get to do that ever. Batman's got to have some feelings. Maybe you need someone you can share them with.
There you go.
Yeah.
I guess where can people currently read Blue Valkyrie and like support you guys? Like we're gonna throw down links in the description, but for people listening live right now.
We publish on Tumblr and Tapastic. They're published on the same day, although, there is no although, they're published on the same day. Our Tumblr link is www.tumblr.com/Blue Valkyrie Comic. I'm pretty sure. Yes, that's it. I got a little confused. And then on Tapastic, I believe we are tapastic.com/series/Blue Valkyrie. But if you just go to the website and search for us, you'll find us. We are on Patreon. Again, just the Blue Valkyrie on Patreon will bring you there. We are also currently selling print copies of the Blue Valkyrie if you'd like those. Those are on Gumroad, the Blue Valkyrie. You can get that through my Twitter also. I am the Blue Valkyrie on Twitter. You can notice the common theme here. And of course, we are also on Facebook as the Blue Valkyrie.
Awesome. And of course, that'll be thrown down in a link so people can, if they're too lazy to search, you can just click on a little blue thing and get it there. Yeah, I mean, we've gone through most of the questions I prepared. Is there anything you guys are hoping to talk about in addition to that? We're just chilling here. There's no structure.
Cool. 5 minutes. Let's see.
I'm curious, do you have fixed
All
days
right.
you publish on, sorry? Like,
Do we have what?
a fixed day that people can expect a page to come out? Like, do you publish every Sunday or whatever?
We try to publish every week. It typically ends up being consistent for a few weeks, but it just depends on when David can get it done.
Nice.
So I would say every week, usually around the weekends.
Awesome. So keep in mind, weekends, that's when you get to read comics. Rainy afternoons in the fall, that's when you're going to get to sit down.
That's right. But you can read the Blue Valkyrie anytime.
So yeah, I know you were actually inspired, you're talking about X-Men and such. In the past, were there other comics that you guys got to read that you'd say influenced you?
Oh, absolutely. Actually, a lot of my superhero influences don't come from much from comics, but from television.
Oh yeah.
I was a huge fan of like Batman the animated series, but more to the point, Justice League and Justice League Unlimited were two cartoons that I think are absolutely phenomenal. I love them. I still love them, and they definitely influenced me a lot. As far as comics go, when I was a kid, or when I was a teenager at least, I read Bone, and I absolutely adore Bone by Jeff Smith, and so that one definitely was an influence. And then when I was a lot younger, I really liked Spider-Man. I liked Spider-Man comics.
Those are so delightfully silly. I've got a volume of all the really old Spider-Man. They're so ridiculous and great. How about you, David?
Yeah, they were blast. I actually have a picture of me as a kid. We went to the museum, the local museum, and there was a spider exhibit at the museum, and it was like, come see Spider-Man at the spider exhibit, and I was so thrilled that I was going to meet Spider-Man.
And did you?
Oh, yeah, I have a picture of me and Spider-Man. I think I still have it around here somewhere.
That must have been great. How about you, David? If there are any comics that you'd say strongly influenced your art?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of a voracious consumer when it comes to art, so always something. I think I'm definitely like Emily in that actually kind of a big influence, and a lot of my relationship to color and line actually inspired by the techniques found in traditional cell animation. So yeah, same thing with X-Men Evolution. Otherwise, when it comes to comics, I read a little bit of everything. I like some superhero comics, but I think especially sort of as my style started to gel in college, it was a lot of the sort of black and white boom comics from the 80s and 90s. Bone, as was mentioned, Love and Rockets, Carlos B. McNeil's amazing Finder library. You know, a lot of that generation of sort of black and white indie folks, really influential.
Yeah, it comes across, I think, in your art being it's very clean and solid, and also just going back to the story elements. I was thinking when you mentioned Bone, it's like that's an idea of something that started out very simple and small and became this really big grand thing. And I kind of see that with Blue Valkyrie, where it starts out in sort of like Chloe's little world, but now it's very quickly expanding into a much larger world, and I'm very excited to see where it goes.
So am I. I'll let you know when I figure it out.
How far ahead have you written, would you say?
Written? Working on the 5th issue right now as far as writing goes. Planned, like probably about 10 issues, but maybe closer to 12 with what I've got planned. And then future, the world is my oyster. I've got random spatterings of ideas planned of things that I think will be really fun to do, but I just can't do right now, and I need to establish the story first. And I'm very impatient.
That's the great tragedy of being an artist, is that thought is faster than action. So you will, by definition, always have more ideas than you can execute.
Especially when slowed down by my chain link fences. So slow.
Right? I mean, that's just another fact of science, is that thought is faster than a chain link fence.
That's absolutely correct, yeah.
People do say that.
Yes, I've heard that before.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, you guys. This was absolutely terrific. I really enjoyed reading the book. I'm definitely going to keep up with it. I'm a poor as crap artist, but I would love to chip in money to buy some issues. When issue 4 goes on print, I'm going to buy all 4. I recommend everyone who reads my comic to do the same. As I said, it's not a bad way to spend your entertainment budget supporting, indie artists just trying to make their way in the world. Thanks so much, you guys.
Thank you very much. It was a blast.
And thanks everyone for listening. See you next week. Bye.